Good morning. Holly, thanks for joining us, our lone audience. I'm Dr. Girija Nagaswamy, professor in the English department and facilitator for our Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning, and my colleague here, Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Dr. Stephanie Scordia. I'm an associate professor in the English department at Community College of Philadelphia, and I'm the professional learning coordinator at the college.
So today our topic is adopting technology as a tool for faculty professional learning. So just to give you a quick overview and background, our Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning, FACTL, as we call it, was established sometime in the 1980s, I would say early 1980s, and it was always considered as the professional learning hub for faculty to meet and discuss and exchange ideas about teaching. And it was very much a faculty-driven center. It was always led by faculty. The facilitator was a faculty and has always been a faculty. And an advisory committee comprising of faculty from across the divisions and disciplines are formed, and they're all, again, faculty. And it's the advisory committee that meets and selects the facilitator on a rotation basis. People come 2-3 years, leave, and somebody else gets selected. And the main goal was to promote interdisciplinary exchanges among faculty, so, we don't remain just within our disciplines. Now, Stephanie and I took over as co-facilitators in 2019, and we felt the need for developing a strategic plan. So with the help of a few advisory committee members, we developed a 5-year strategic plan with specific goals and action items. And in fact, now we are done with 2 years, and we've been in the process of reviewing to see whether we achieved all the goals, which action items, and where we are, and we're in fact making some changes to the strategic plan itself based on what we have learned. And our emphasis was also shifting the culture of Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning to a culture towards outcome-based model, where we wanted to really assess what impact our professional learning really has on student success, on students' retention. And very recently, I think 2 years, Stephanie, the college got the Title III grant, and due to the grant, we were able to create a position, a full-time professional learning coordinator, and that's Stephanie here. And we were also given a team of 8 faculty members who formed the professional learning core team. So now I'll pass it on to Stephanie.
Thank you, Girija. So prior to the pandemic, I think a lot of our schools, the programming for faculty professional learning was largely face-to-face. We really didn't at CCP use any kind of remote or distance options for professional learning. It was all delivered. Most of it was held in our teaching center in the FACTL, and it was advertised via email. But that was about the extent of the technology piece. Was really just kind of letting people know, that programming was happening. But then you'd come, physically face to face to participate in the programming. Because of this, we often saw sparse attendance. Prior to Girija and I, becoming the co-facilitators of the FACTL, as we call it, in 2019, you would maybe see anywhere from 5 or 6 faculty. Occasionally, you'd see, higher. And to be frank, sometimes you had much maybe like this presentation today, you had 1 person come, right? And not to say that those conversations still can't be valuable. Certainly they can. But if the goal of professional learning for faculty is to ensure that teachers are adopting the best practices, that we're really supporting our students, their learning in the classroom, outside the classroom, right? We're working towards improving student outcomes, student success, retention, completion, et cetera. then we want big numbers, right? It's nice to just have a chat with three colleagues, but we certainly want, within the professional learning world for faculty, we want big numbers. So we were seeing that low attendance, prior to the pandemic when we offered face-to-face sessions. Obviously, we weren't recording. Well, I shouldn't say obviously. I suppose we could have been recording those face-to-face programs. But we weren't, that wasn't really something that prior to COVID, we were thinking about, Zooming and recording and whatnot. And because of the in-person nature of the programming, there really wasn't opportunity for any continued or sustained discussion, right? So if we had something from 12 to 1 p.m., that was it. People went their separate ways. It was if you happen to maybe connect with someone, who in the hallway or, maybe in passing, you might have a little conversation, continuing the discussion, but there was no built-in opportunity to reconnect or to extend the conversation beyond the isolated, time that the program was set. And in terms of some examples of programming, I'd have to probably think a little more on this, but I'm wondering if the nature of the mode, the face-to-face, affected a little bit what we were offering. Largely, we had book discussion groups, and these would be books that would be dealing with pedagogical topics. Not, Oprah's book of the month or whatever, learning communities. And as Grija mentioned, from the beginning of the Factal, there was always an emphasis on really getting faculty out of silos, and having interdisciplinary, conversations, this kind of cross-pollination. We've expanded that to really try to also include student support folks, not only, classroom faculty. So we definitely had learning communities prior to COVID, but again, it was really kind of a one and done model where faculty came if it worked with their schedule, had a conversation, maybe completed an activity, and then there really wasn't anything beyond that. So I'm going to turn things back to Grija.
All right. As entire world pivoted March 2020, who can forget that? Thinking we were just going to pivot for 2 weeks, then it's 2 years now, and everybody pivoted to virtual sessions. So we were no exception. So obviously, we also felt the need to offer online professional learning sessions. And, keeping up, because faculty were asked to suddenly teach online. Some faculty have never taught online. They've always taught face-to-face. So all of a sudden, the question of how do you engage students in a synchronized modality? How do you create these online courses? Because we thought, okay, we were going back in fall, that didn't happen. And everybody had to come up with online courses very quickly for fall. So again, we had to think about that and help faculty understand what it is to teach online, whether it is synchronous or asynchronous. So keeping up with that trend, we offered some sessions between, I think in April to August, we felt the need to kind of fulfill that. So we offered engaging students in synchronous sessions, and also, we created model courses where other faculty could use it. But then how do you personalize a course that was already created by another person? And then the question was, how do you teach some course like biology with lab or music, which is very much hands-on? How do you teach that online? So we invited faculty from that discipline to, engage in a workshop, show other faculty how they did it. And of course, this also facilitated a lot of collaborative creation of online courses. And we had few faculty present how they collaborated to create course. And of course, as the fall came on, we also wanted to have a teaching slam on student engagement in online courses. And what we noticed was in all this, there was a significant increase in attendance. Instead of 4 or 5, we had, on an average, 35 to 40 faculty attend, even in summer months. Of course, we were all, restrained, from going anywhere. But even then, people would spend an afternoon or a morning attending these sessions. And what was advantageous and important was we were able to record these sessions because Zoom allowed us that capability. We never thought about it. We had Zoom, but we never thought about recording earlier. But now we were able to record these sessions, post it on Factil website. So faculty could always go and access these sessions, even if they missed attending one or two. So that kind of gave us this thought about leveraging technology. We can definitely increase faculty engagement in professional learning. I'll turn it over to Stephanie again.
And so fast forwarding a little bit, it really looked at CCP at least, and I think probably in the region, maybe we were looking like at a full return, right? It seemed for fall of 2021 for the start of the term, and that's not what happened with us. Following the city's mandates, using that as our guide, the first half of the semester we remained largely virtual. I will say that some programs were meeting in person, but they were the exception, not the norm. So we surveyed faculty to at this point the pandemic had been for a full year, right? And we had been delivering the professional learning in this new way. Largely, through the Zoom, relying on Zoom for synchronous sessions that then would be recorded so people could watch them later. And as Grija mentioned, and on the previous slide, we were starting to use our website a little more, posting the videos on the web, and so that people could, we're building up essentially a video library of professional learning resources. So when we administered this survey, and you can see just one kind of graphic here, the majority did indicate that the synchronous sessions were the top choice. The idea of offering, I think, the recording for later watching also appealed to some folks. But that was, certainly the preferred mode. And you can even see, that as far as the in-person, when allowed, if safety protocols would allow, right? And so we have not yet seen at CCP of return to in-person professional learning. Grija is going to talk a little more in the next slide about what we've been doing since fall of 2021. But it definitely, I think we continue to see the increased attendance. And what was, I think, most exciting for us was to see the sustained kind of piece to the professional learning, which, again, just simply did not really exist before.
All right. So having offered, some sessions online, and since the preferred method was synchronous, we kept to that. We listened to the faculty's preferences, and we offered. And in spring 2022, we leveraged our college's LMS Canvas and thought this is an opportunity for us to offer some sustained programs for our faculty. And I'm just going to briefly talk about some of these. One was the Assessment Academy. We started this sometime in spring 2021, but we kind of enhanced it, and we realized faculty can complete this at their own pace. It doesn't have to be in that particular semester. So that's why we started using Canvas, and we created these modules where we could upload the recorded sessions and have some activities, engaging activities for faculty to participate. And as and when they complete, they could earn certificates. So if they did 3 sessions successfully, they would earn a bronze certificate. 6, that will give them silver. If they completed everything more, they go to gold. And we also did what we called a virtual learning exchange, both in fall and spring, in fact. In the fall, we first thought of every, first Wednesdays, we will have something related to Canvas. Other Wednesdays, we would have something related to our early alert system, Starfish. The following Wednesday, we would talk about data-informed pedagogy. And last one would be inclusive. But then, we changed in the spring and we started doing virtual learning exchanges every other Wednesday, the first Wednesdays of the month, and the third Wednesday of the month. We would select an article from the faculty focus and send it prior to the meeting, and people would read it, and we would just post some discussion questions, and that generated a lot of interest also. These were not recorded because we thought these were just informal exchanges, but they were, again, virtual. And then we thought about these 4 teaching certificates. And we created, again, Canvas courses, and we had 3 sessions for each of these certificates. And in fact, for online, there was a 4th one. And, we had faculty offer workshops for each of these teaching certificates, different topics. These were recorded and uploaded on the Canvas modules. There were follow-up activities. And you will see later in our presentation the advantage of doing something like this, because this is faculty could do what they want to do at their own pace. And we would constantly advertise these and say, if you want to join any one of these teaching certificates, let us know. At any given time, they could jump in and join these certificates. And keeping that practice in mind, now we are going to offer a 3-day virtual Summer Equity Institute. In fact, it's coming up soon, next week, for 3 days. And once the institute is over, faculty can complete activities in the upcoming year at their own pace. They have the entire academic year to complete activities, follow-up activities for Summer Equity Institute. So I will leave Stephanie to talk about the advantages of doing something like this.
So there are many advantages to using technology, primarily Zoom and our LMS, Canvas, to deliver faculty professional learning. So the first, obviously, the increased faculty participation. As I mentioned, when we were before the pandemic, when it was face-to-face programming, the numbers were relatively low, particularly given the number of faculty at our college. And we certainly have seen over the last 2 years an increase in faculty participation. Folks who might not have ever really taken part in something that the Factil offered before, because maybe they taught at our Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning is on our main campus at 17th and Spring Garden in Philadelphia, and we have regional centers. So if you were a faculty member who maybe taught at our Northeast Regional Center, which is very close to Bucks County, sort of Northeast Philadelphia, trying to come in person to the main campus on Spring Garden would be quite a hardship in time, gas, SEPTA fare, whatever it may be, right? So being able to open it up, in terms of accessibility, using the technology is clearly a huge advantage. Something that even when we return to largely in person, our plan is to continue with this model of delivery, and that is one of the reasons. Also, with the certificates in particular and the Assessment Academy, Grija mentioned, faculty are able to move through those at their own pace. So essentially, faculty are added to the Canvas community or the Canvas course for the certificate that they're interested in as a student. That's the role that they come in, and so they're working through the material as a student would that was enrolled in a course. They're reading whatever materials have been posted in the module. They're completing an activity or an assignment in the module. And unlike students in a course in a semester where there are deadlines and the semester comes to an end, these are just open-ended, right? So we've had faculty, maybe they started and they're not finished yet. They did the first 2 modules, and we trust that we nudged them, and that's another I think advantage to using the LMS, the ability to communicate easily. I'm kind of jumping down on the bullet points there, but the moving through it at their own pace is an added benefit, I think, to delivering professional learning in this way. and the sustained interaction. And I'm going to actually pause or stop sharing the PowerPoint for a minute because I want to show what that looks like in action. So stop sharing, and let's see here. I'm going to reshare, jump to Chrome, and what I would like to show everyone is this. So this is the Canvas course or Canvas community for our equity-minded teaching certificate. And as you can see, the first, there were 3 sessions, and the dates refer to when the synchronous session took place. And we have good turnout at the synchronous session. So because again, as that survey indicated, that was the preferred mode of delivery, was a synchronous session. But you can see that February 25th was our first session, and the recording is here, so people could watch it later. But what I really am drawing everyone's attention to is the activity was a discussion board. Okay, and again, February 25th was the session. So our first post came from March 3rd, and I just want to scroll quickly here and show that as late as May 21st. Okay, and I'm going to stop there. So from a session that was held in February, as recently as May 21st, we had a engagement there. And people will, even if they watched the session in February and they did their post to the discussion board and they've moved on, people do come back and comment on something that their colleague has said a month or longer later. So we really felt that was interesting. It was interesting to see, and it was exciting to see, because again, it didn't. That was new. That wasn't something that we were able to do if we were having in-person sessions. I did already mention the ease of communication using the LMS, right? Using Canvas. So there's the announcements, there's the inbox messaging. So being able to kind of connect, of course, we still rely on email, but really just covering all the bases, much like we would, for students who are enrolled in classes, right? You want to try to give them information in as many places as possible. And a few more advantages that we found, that interaction, between colleagues, so among peers, if you will. I think, and being that it's working towards earning a certificate provided a little extra motivation, to move through the modules to earn the certificate. The built-in assessment of the professional learning was another piece that was useful. We would, prior to the pandemic, when the sessions were face-to-face, feedback surveys weren't necessary. We had sign-in sheets to kind of keep track of attendance, but we didn't. Faculty facilitators didn't always use feedback, surveys. So we're thinking, well, how can we get a sense of how people feel about this programming that we're offering? Are we doing a good job? Are we covering any topics that people are interested in, et cetera? One of the ways, and I'm sorry, could everybody mute? I think I'm hearing some echoing, maybe only it's on my end. But the survey, in order to earn the certificate, after you work through the modules, there's a survey that's just really asking for people to share their thoughts about the certificate and the sessions. And really, I think what this does is it puts the ownership of professional learning in faculty's hands. So the FACTL has long been faculty-driven, and the ideas for topics come from faculty. This new Title III core team, of which I, as the professional learning coordinator, am a part, is really just kind of emphasizing that. And so having the Canvas professional learning lets faculty, again, move at their own pace, decide, when they're going to complete, who they can interact with. I should say maybe that they are able to commit at the time, which is another advantage or benefit for sure. And now I'm going to turn things back to Garija.
All right. So looking ahead, having done this for a year now, we feel that we need to continue to leverage technology, not, even if, as Stephanie said, just in case we all go back full swing, I think faculty's preference is always going to be the synchronous model. And we are going to continue offering that and continue to have our LMS Canvas to enhance and, add to our existing programming. For example, for the teaching certificates, we conducted that this year, but I'm sure we can add more and more sessions, more modules as we go along, and faculty can complete again at their own pace. And what we are moving towards is a tiered credential framework. For example, since we're doing a Summer Equity Institute, there's going to be a tiered credential framework based on equity. And there would be 3 levels, level 1, level 2, level 3. Faculty can select how much they want to do, how little they want to do, and earn their credential. So let's say if they do level 1, couple things listed on level 1, they earn credential towards that. Then they can move to level 2 and do more. Or they have done something in the past, they can straight go to level 3 and do some more intensive kind of presentations or, letting others lead something. So that's what we have in mind, and we are going to move towards that. And again, our Canvas is going to come in big way to help us do that, because we can track, faculty can upload what they have done. So definitely, this is absolutely, Canvas has helped us to leverage this technology and help our faculty to, get involved in their professional learning and have a sustained conversation with their fellow colleagues. And I think, as we say, pandemic, yes, it brought its havoc, but it also opened up doors for some innovations in terms of professional learning for us, at least from our experience. We think it's a huge advantage, and we don't want to lose that momentum. So we want to keep doing that. So that kind of concludes our presentation. Thank you so much for attending. And we will now open it up to questions. And we are really curious to see if anybody here, Don, Tucker, Holly, are you part of Center for Teaching and Learning, or what's your experience? Anyone?
Yeah,
I can speak. Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Hi, I'm Hedel Thacker, and I'm at HAC, which is the main campus is in Harrisburg. And I'm one of the faculty coordinators of our Center for Innovation and Teaching Excellence. And I've been doing this for about a year, and we're trying to move, we're kind of a small operation, so it's totally faculty driven. So we don't have like a dedicated person. This is just part of our teaching load. So our progress is incremental. But it's been interesting for us. I have one co-coordinator who's also a faculty member, and we kind of jumped in on it in the 2021 school year. So everything has been via Zoom. And our administration has been kind of trying to push in the LMS and coming up with these asynchronous modules and trainings, which we're all for. We're a little concerned, given our size, about the workload of that. So I'm kind of curious from you all about, you created these wonderful certificates and these trainings that are on the LMS. So is that content that was created by faculty? Did you have outside experts coming in? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yep.
Sure, and that's a great question. So to be perfectly frank, the grant, the Title III grant, was another piece that helped make, I think, this possible. I think Regina and I would have continued to have done the best that we could had the college not gotten that grant. But the grant enabled, for one, it enabled me to become a full-time person, still faculty, but doing the professional learning coordinator role. Previously, that was not the structure. So I hear you when you're, it is when it's a small faculty group of faculty doing this work. So that was significant. And then not only was my role created because of the grant, but we also had funding to assemble a core team of faculty, and there are 8 faculty members. They're all full-time faculty. They represent different academic divisions. And so, and one of the other questions in the chat was who's monitoring the discussions, who's looking at the discussions. And to your question, Hatal, is it?
Heddle.
Heddle. I'm sorry. To your question, the content, was, if not created, it was the course was built by these core team folks who do receive financial compensation by way of the grant. But in other areas, or I should say in some of the modules, if it wasn't a core team person, it would have been someone who was considered a content expert. And it was a volunteer, volunteering. Regis and I, having been at the college and having worked in various leadership roles, we're fortunate to know a lot of colleagues well enough to say, hey, we're having a certificate on, there's interest in this. We know you do this. Would you be willing to lead a 60-minute session, on Zoom? And our colleagues are, generous of their time. Those who were not receiving financial compensation would say yes. And one way to try to recognize that, we did create certificates at the end of the year, and during our fellows presentations, and we have 2 teaching awards at that ceremony. It's virtual, of course. We did, recognize that contribution and provide them with a certificate for their dossier or their portfolio, if they're applying for promotion, that sort of thing. So it really was. But to be clear, I mean, from my view, if it had not been for that Title III grant, I'm not sure that we would have been able to scale up as much.
Yeah, and I think so. And Heddle, just to answer, sometimes Stephanie or I do the monitoring. For example, the Assessment Academy, the people who present are done. We don't want to bother them again. So I go in and check completion, and we keep track of it. And, until the grant, it was, we had to teach and do this. That was just not possible. So now this grant has given us that possibility. Is there another question in the chat? Okay. Any other thoughts, questions from John or Holly or Heather?
Yeah, I saw Holly's question about do faculty register via self-enrollment, and I saw you did answer that. That right, we would put out a call, using Canva. We do, make our own graphics and flyers and such, and we used Canva, not Canvas, but the the graphic design template site. We'd send out that, here are these, for example, in the spring, those 4 certificates. Descriptions of what each one entailed, and then we asked people to email us at the Factal, and then we would add them to the course again in the student role. So the folks who had the teacher role were the members of the core team, Grija, myself, and the faculty who were presenting, so that they could also upload materials to it. And that seems to have worked well. I mean, we're always assessing. We're kind of hitting a lull, except we've got our big Equity Institute next week. But we're always getting feedback to see how we can improve.
Thank you for joining us. We're almost there. We have a couple more minutes if anyone has any questions. Not.
Well, it's always nice to get a minute or 2 back to, step away from or move away from the screen. Great. Thank you. Yes, thank you for coming. We appreciate your time. and
Thank
enjoy
you
the
so
rest of
much
the
for joining
conference.
me.
Bye.
All right.